Welcome everyone to the Experience Southern Illinois podcast. I am your host, Jared Long, with my co-host,
Allison Hassler.
And I'm with So Ill Cinema, Allison with Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals, and today we are with our new friend, George. George, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Tell everybody where we're at today.
Well, you're at the Pomona Winery, the only winery in Illinois that's never used a grape.
Not one single grape.
We have never harmed a grape. We've been around for a while. I'll get into a little bit of history. We started this winery in 1989, actually. We started building, we broke grounds for this building and considered the idea of having a winery because at that time we were residential builders and we didn't really see any future in that as old people. And we watched what had been happening over at Alto Vineyards. They created a huge stir and it generated mountains of press and had an opening beyond successful. They had people waiting in line while they were bottling wine.
And time frame, what years are we looking at?
That was 1987.
87, okay.
Yes. And so we, at that time, were making apple wine as amateurs. We were holding an annual festival that we called the Big Squeeze. And we got together with literally a truckload of apples and old-timey cider making equipment, hand grinders and big basket presses with screws that you screw down and squeeze out the juice. And we'd make about 300 or 400 gallons of apple juice every year. And usually at the end of that, there'd be some leftover. And one year we thought, let's make some wine. We made some apple wine and we discovered, wow, that's pretty good. And our friends enjoyed it too. And we very wisely thought, well, they're willing to drink it for free, surely they'll pay for it. So we got a commercial wine license. We went to our first Illinois wine conference and discovered that we really hadn't researched the industry. There were only 5 other wineries in the entire state.
Wow.
And we, over several months, actually probably more like a couple of years, we considered the possibility of approaching the legislature and pointing out what was happening in some of our neighboring states, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Missouri. All of those states were taking a little bit of that excise tax that California was paying for the privilege of selling wine in their state. They were taking some of that money and putting it into their own industry to support the industry. And then we showed them graphs and charts and look at the money, look at the money, look at the money. And they said, okay, we'll give you $500,000 a year and we'll establish the Illinois Grape and Wine Resource Council. We hired an enologist, that's a winemaking expert, a viticulturalist, a grape growing expert, a marketing expert. We had people from the University of Illinois, from Illinois Tourism, from Southern Illinois University, all meeting once a month in Springfield to stimulate and regrow, give rebirth to the Illinois wine industry that had been destroyed by Prohibition and never recovered. We never once told them there were only 6 of us and that they had just really given us $80,000 a piece to support our businesses. But it was pretty obvious that the time was ripe. And just that minor stimulation and the press generated by that minor stimulation, it caused the industry to explode. There are over 200 wineries in Illinois now. And then after we were in business for a couple of years, we were here, Pomona Winery and Alto Vineyards. We were the only 2 wineries in the area. And Ted Wickman opened up Owl Creek, and the 3 of us got together and approached Carbondale Tourism. And we said, hey, how about if we have a wine trail? And they liked the idea. They happened to have some grant money at that time. And they printed a brochure for us. We drew a map with all of our 3 wineries on it and some other local attractions. And so that was in 1991. That's when the wine trail actually started. Of course, now it's grown to 12 wineries. And I call it an old hippie's wildest dream. We have a group of people in a business that cooperate. And it's very surprising to our visitors, to our customers. They'll often come in and say, oh, your competition down the road is doing such and such. And, no, I don't think we're competition. I think we're cooperating here, and we all appreciate one another's value. We appreciate one another's skills. We actually get together on a regular basis and, in a sense, air our dirty laundry. If we have a wine that we're having a problem with, we bring it to one of these meetings. We present it to all of the winemakers on the wine trail, to the experts at the Fermentation Institute at SIU, Southern Illinois University, and figure out what to do to fix it. And I think that, man, it's a healthy business environment. It's a healthy emotional environment, and a healthy winemaking environment. We make some remarkable wines here in Southern Illinois. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I have a question for you.
Good.
Fill in the gap of let me rephrase that. What was the thought process in never ever touching a grape?
Oh, it never once entered our minds. The first wine we made was an apple wine. It was a crisp, clean, just delightful wine. We had access to the equipment to produce apple juice from apples. It's not a terribly straightforward process, and it does require some rather specialized equipment. And since we were having our annual Big Squeeze Festival, all of that was available, the equipment and the skills to use it. And we also discovered that apples are very, very consistent from year to year. The minor differences are not noticeable in the product. And okay, so some of the magic about grapes is, you never know what's going to happen. But that's also a real downside in terms of an anxiety-free business. And so the apples were just so attractive in that respect. And we live in the township of Pomona, which is the Roman goddess of fruit trees and orchards. We're surrounded by an orchard industry, and number two, apples are so readily available. And those are the apples that are healthy, sound apples, but cosmetically imperfect. So they're not going to go to Walmart. They're going to be turned into baby food and pie filling or apple wine.
Nice.
And you use some local sourcing as well too for the wines that you make here. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say 99% of our fruit comes from within 25 miles of the winery. We do use some black currants in one of our wines, which are no longer available locally. So I'm not even
That's
sure.
the 1%?
That's the 1%. That's
And
right.
everything else then is here locally. So
That's right.
who do you work with locally for?
Well, we'll work with Hall's Berry Patch, Blueberry Hills, Flam, and Rendleman Orchard. And I'd
Awesome.
say that about covers it.
Yeah, our last podcast was with Michelle Searles.
Oh, yes, okay,
Rendleman
good,
Orchard.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so-
Yeah, we've known them quite some time, actually.
And one of the things we talked about with her, we constantly talk about in Southern Illinois that's really starting to catch fire is that collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
That not only are you collaborating with the other wineries, which is such an asset to the wineries down here to be able to have 11 other people who are doing the same thing that you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and you guys are telling each other, okay, well, I messed up on this week. That's saving you from a whole lot of
That's right.
trouble, or you're saving them from a whole lot of trouble, or just fast tracking each other's progress and growth so that Southern Illinois wineries as a whole are better because of this Wine Trail Association.
Absolutely, yes. I think Southern Illinois as a whole, I think we've changed the face of tourism in Southern Illinois. Rendleman and Flam now have thriving retail businesses.
Yeah.
Well, you know about the micro-hospitality industry. When we started this thing in 1991, I'd say there were 0 bed and breakfasts or cabins. VRBO hadn't been invented.
Right.
I can't begin to count the number of micro-hospitality businesses that are really flourishing here now.
Yeah.
So that's good stuff, I think. And I think it's a very green, sustainable industry. I don't see environmental pitfalls, which I see everywhere. There are just so many of them. And to be able to have an industry that kind of avoids that part of the disaster happening around us.
Yeah.
You'll cut that part out, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, and I feel like it has been such a hidden secret down here in Southern Illinois. And we've admitted on our Hiking with Sean podcast that we're not originally from Southern Illinois.
Yeah, where are you from?
So thank you for asking. I am from Petersburg, Illinois, which is just north of Springfield.
Corn, soybeans.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Or soybeans and
the
corn.
land of
Right.
Lincoln. We had a little town called New Salem there. That
Oh, yes, of course.
shout out New
I was
Salem.
just looking at pictures from our trip to New Salem 40, 50 years ago.
It's beautiful. I never
Oh,
appreciated
wow.
it as a kid. It's a free park you can go to where
Yeah.
Lincoln spent his
Yeah,
college days.
yeah.
Anyways, coming from central Illinois to down here, we have an outsider's perspective of, and I had heard about the wine trail 10 years before I ever heard about the Shawnee National Forest, and that's all I do is
Yeah.
spend my time out in the forest,
Yeah.
doing video and stuff like that. And so, the wine trail really has done a lot to bring attention down here to Southern Illinois. And one of the things we were talking about before we came here is there's so many things that deserve attention in Southern Illinois. And so you're talking about how, it's just the industry and the things that are growing in Southern Illinois is just showing off what's already here. We're not, it's almost like you don't even really have to add much, and that's what I've appreciated as a videographer,
Yeah.
is I just point my camera and I'm like, this is amazing down here, and people just have no idea. And so what has that been like to see it go from, in 1989, you're crushing apples with your friends to, now there's 12 wineries on this wine trail, and there's something really happening here.
It's been a wonderful transition to see.
Yeah.
And it gives us a much greater appreciation for what we have and where we are. We travel every winter to the desert, to places as different from this as are possible. We go places where there are literally no plants. It's bentonite clay. It doesn't support any plant life. And it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful in its own way. But to come back to this after 10 weeks with no plants whatsoever is just so enriching and gives such an appreciation for what we have here, for the biological diversity, for the the air you can wear, the humidity, the birds, all of those things, and to re-experience that anew once a year is a really wonderful thing to do.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
And where are you from?
So I am also from Central Illinois. So I am from Effingham area, which is a very small town. Shout out to Newton, Illinois, which is Jasper County. So
Okay.
county over from Effingham, but most people know where that area is because it's on I-57.
Right, I think interstates and
So-
trucks.
Yep.
That's what's up here.
And like Jared, I came down here in early 2000s with my boyfriend, now husband, and as what I call the staycationer that came down over the weekend, went to the wineries, maybe did a little bit of hiking, and I fell in love with so much, and just the contrast that we have in agriculture and geography between, in that 2.5 hour drive is just so big. Just the amount of differences. And we just really fell in love with it. So we've been down here for 19 years now and still treat ourselves like tourists. And still go to all the hot spots and events and things like that. And we absolutely love it. So we just happen to be on the far east side of the wine trail, and you're on the far west side.
That's right. So you're
Yeah.
over by Blue Sky and Starview, and
Yep.
and the canopy tour, the zip
Yes,
line.
the canopy
Yes.
tour.
Boy, geez, we took that the other day.
Did you do that?
We did it last Halloween.
Yeah.
And holy crap, what a beautifully engineered project.
I got to do it for the first time this last year as well too. It's actually we're letting out a little secret here, but he's on our docket for one of the future ones.
Yeah.
They just got Forbes like best zip line in the world or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, or I don't know.
I know it's the only one in the state that is only supported by natural trees, no posts. But it could be farther than that, a
Yeah.
larger area than
Yeah,
that.
and but you're right. It's like a show a little bit as well too. I mean, they've got stuff like they already know that they're going to say about the trees, about the forest, about certain vegetation along the
Yeah.
trail as well too. The group that we were with had some kids, and the trail guide was like, "Hey, these are actually kind of tasty. You can try these. These stay away from." And it was cool because it was interactive.
Yeah.
It was so much more than just a zip lining.
Yeah.
But there is so much down here in Southern Illinois, and it's just the more you look, the more you'll find something. The Alpaca Ranch, Rolling Oaks
Oh,
Alpaca
that's
Ranch,
right,
is just
yeah.
right around the corner
Yeah.
over there. And then you got some cabins over there. You got
do.
Sunrise Hill is just right
Yep.
across the way. But yeah, I mean, as a videographer, there's countless. I just keep running into places where I'm like, okay, I just need to put my drone up. I need to take my camera out, and the landscape, Mother Nature has just done all of the work, and so
Yeah.
it's awesome. I'm curious, going back, what got you into apple wine? Was there a person? Was there like?
Or apple juice.
Well,
Because that's what it started
grow
with,
up-
right?
oh, cripes, I know how the apple juice happened. Oh, cripes, I was married to a woman, and we moved here for graduate school, and she went out to a thrift store or something like that and found a cider press.
Oh.
An old, really rickety, primitive cider press that she was going to give to her father for Christmas. And we discovered that we couldn't fit it in our Fiat 124 Sport Coupe. And we ended up having it. And one year we thought, well, let's try this thing. So we took out this press, and there was a kind of I don't know what this thing was. It went around and it had spikes on it. We set that aside. And then we took the press and filled a basket with apples and started turning the screw, and the platen went down and started pressing the apples, and it started creaking and popping, and a couple of drops of juice came out, then a couple of more drops, and then creaking, and no, I don't think this isn't the way we do this. And then we realized that this thing with the spikes, that's a grinder.
Yeah.
And so we then took the whole apples out of the press and put them through the grinder. It was a soft fruit grinder. We didn't have any idea, but the little spikes weren't really very sharp. So you had to take a mallet kind of and push the apples into the grinder. Somebody's grinding, somebody's pushing, and there's apple pulp falling into a dish pan, and then you dump the pulp into the basket. And finally we figured out how to make apple juice, and for some reason we allowed that to run amok.
Yeah.
And,
You just didn't stop.
Over the years, we bought better and more sophisticated equipment. We finally got to the point where we could produce, with the equipment we're using for the winery, 1,000 gallons of apple juice in a day, as opposed to maybe 20.
Yeah, wow.
And so anyway, yeah, that's how we got into the.
Would you have ever imagined when you're sitting there using the grinder like a press and doing that you would be here today? Would you have ever thought?
No.
Yeah, George, where did you go to graduate school for? I'm dying to know. Is it had anything to do with what you're doing today?
Oh, heavens no. I'm a recovering clinical psychologist.
Oh, wow.
That's
Couldn't
awesome.
have been farther from it. Okay. Equally
A
therapeutic.
recovery, I like that.
And with respect to did we ever think this was going to happen, I don't think we've ever had a long-term plan. I think we've seized opportunities as they became available. And it's worked out extremely well for us.
Yeah.
I don't know that a lot of people could do that, but for some reason, we very early on, we decided that instead of getting a job and getting money and giving the government 20% of it or whatever, and then hiring someone to do things for us, and they would be getting our money and then giving the government 20% of it, we decided to invest in tools and skills. So that was a long-term plan.
Sure.
But I think that about sums it up.
Yeah.
And the tools and skills allowed us to go into the building trades. We built this building, and I don't mean we hired contractors, I mean we literally built this building.
Oh, wow. This is huge, and it's beautiful.
Yes, it is. The farther we get from this process, the harder it is to believe that we did this. But because we never had regular jobs, we had time to do these sort of things. And as I said before, we had tools and skills. So we've had a very different life from most people. Actually, I think you two probably have too, based on what I've seen so far. So.
Yeah.
How integral has that relationship been between you and the wine trail? How has that been helpful to you over the years?
Oh, it's why our business is here.
Yeah, yeah.
We wouldn't have a winery here if it wasn't for the wine trail.
Yeah.
For one thing, we're out here in the middle of nowhere.
A beautiful drive.
It is.
But it's a long drive.
It's a very long drive, that's right.
Walmart's a little far away.
Oh, yeah. You should see the people from Chicago getting out of their cars, man. Their eyes are bugged out. And like, whoa, aren't you afraid to live out here? And I really have to wonder, now, what am I supposed to be afraid of?
Yeah.
You live in Chicago.
Yeah.
You're the one that should be afraid.
That's fair.
I don't even remember where I was going. What was the question?
How integral has the Shawnee Wine Trail been to your business?
Absolutely necessary. I tell sort of a I don't know, maybe disrespectful story. Have you ever heard of a remora?
A remora?
A remora, R-E-M-O-R-A. It's also called a sucker fish. It's a fish that fastens itself to a shark. And sharks are very messy eaters. And these remora make their living with the bits of food that fall out of the shark's mouth. I'm the remora.
Of the wine trail? You're the remora.
Holding on to the coattails, right?
That's right.
I feel like we've all done that a little bit in our lives. Yeah. Well, I know that you have more than just apples now. So can you go into a little bit of what you have access to here in Southern Illinois because of the orchards and what other wines you have?
Sure. Apples, yes, we have that. We also have a blueberry wine and a strawberry wine. Those are both dessert wines. And an interesting thing about dessert wine, people don't realize this. Dessert wine doesn't mean sweet. Dessert wine means lots of alcohol, and that's a matter of American labeling law. Any wine with more than 14% alcohol is dessert wine.
I did not know that.
I did not know that either.
Yeah.
Most of them are sweet. That's coincidence. It also contains the word dessert, so people expect them to be sweet.
Well, I know that I have used your strawberry wine to pour over ice cream and eat it as per your suggestion about 10 years ago.
Yep. So I think it's kind of a tribute to the fact that truth in labeling really hasn't reached the alcohol industry. You don't see any nutritional information on those labels, and a lot of the information is kind of like secret code. For one thing, so we could call a wine sweet, we can call it dry, call it semi-sweet, semi-dry. There's no industry standard for what those words mean.
Really?
No.
Wow, I didn't know that.
You just kind of taste it and like, that's semi-sweet.
I'll call that sweet.
That's a little sweet. We'll go semi-sweet
That's
on
right.
this one.
And you could, some wines have residual sugar printed on the label. That's percent by weight of unfermented sugar. And that is indeed a very precise measurement of how much sugar is in the wine. It gives you a much better idea. Of course, it balances out on the other end with acid. And so the sourness and the sweetness kind of balance against one another. So the more sourness you have, the less you notice the sweetness. And the more sweetness you have, the less you notice the sourness. Kind of, they sort of overcome one another. So one of our wines, our Kier, has about the same amount of sugar as our Orchard Harvest, but it has some black currants in it, which, by the way, is the fruit that we cannot get locally. But it doesn't seem nearly as sweet as the Orchard Harvest because it has a teeny little bit of unimaginably tart and sour black currant in it.
Mm-hmm. Black currants are a northern fruit, is that right?
They are.
Okay.
And typically white currants. We purchased a crop of black currants from a grower in Bloomington. He experimented with an acre of black currants. And because we used non-grape fruits to make wines, he approached us and wondered if we wanted to make a blackcurrant wine. We, for some reason, thought they were related to grapes, and we said, yeah, sign us up. So we bought his first crop. Could have been, probably 500-600 pounds of black currants. Turned them into wine, discovered that, it was as dark as tar, and it smelled like turnips. And you couldn't add enough sugar to it to make it drinkable.
Oh, wow.
It was so sour and so tart. And that's kind of anyway, after a couple of years, we had 200 gallons of it in 55-gallon drums, and a woman from France came in one day. And I don't know, for some reason I started talking about this dreadful black currant wine. And she said, oh my heavens, make Kier. And I said, huh? And she said, Kier is a very popular French mixed drink. It's a combination of a black currant liqueur called crème de cassis mixed with dry white wine. So we took a little bit of that black currant stuff and mixed it with our sweet apple wine and fooled with the balance and found what we thought was a pretty good balance. We bottled it and introduced it, and within a week it was our best seller.
Wow.
Just because a customer came in and made a suggestion.
That's
one day.
right, yes.
Oh my gosh.
So we went back to the guy in Bloomington and said, hey, I think we'll buy your black currants again. And he said, well, unfortunately, I plowed them under and planted soybeans, and which was very wise on his part.
Yeah.
So then we started, oh golly, where are we going to find these black currants? We discovered there were only 2 other growers in this entire country. And their crops were entirely accounted for. They were not interested in selling 400 or 500 pounds to a small winery in southern Illinois. So we gave up the moral high ground and purchased concentrate.
Yeah.
And that's what we use now. But other than that, all of our fruit comes from within about 25 miles of the winery.
That is awesome. And I also appreciate what I see in Southern Illinois is the effort to support locally and stuff like that. And so it's just so cool. So you were just talking about Kier. You have some over there. I asked you if there was some that you would like for us to show off today. Do you mind if we do a little sampling?
Oh, I'd love to.
Are you going to do some?
It in the order that you recommend.
Well, then I'm going to start out. We have wines that range from dry to sweet. And the first surprise, we love surprising people. It's one of the fun parts about what we do here. The first surprise is not all non-grape wines are sweet. Anyone coming through that door for the first time, their experience has been really sweet, tastes a lot like it's made out of. But we start out with dry, light wines at the top of our list, and as we go down the list, they get sweeter. So our feeling is we can appeal to just about every palate that comes through that door. Yeah. So that's the first surprise for anyone that comes here. And I'm going to give you a taste of our Jonathan Oak Aged Reserve.
Which is the shirt you're wearing right now, too.
Oh, actually, it is. Coincidence?
Yes.
Well, probably. This is made with Jonathan apples and aged with French oak. Now,
Thank you.
you don't often, actually you almost never run into a non-grape wine that's had any oak. But I think this is a wonderful wine, easily stand up to any Chardonnay.
Okay, so
And-
if you have a Chardonnay palate, this is,
Yes, absolutely. In fact, if you have a would-be wine expert who you wish to humble, put this wine in a plain brown paper bag and serve it to them and see if they can guess what it's made out of.
Yeah,
that is delicious.
And I
It is
can assure you,
delicious.
Apples would be very far down that list.
It
of
does not
possibilities.
taste like an apple
No, it
wine.
doesn't.
What you would expect for an
What
apple
you would
wine.
expect, that's
Yes.
right. Actually, it tastes just
Wow.
like an apple wine, but not what you would expect an apple
Yeah.
wine to be like. So I think this is my personal favorite. I think it has a really nice balance between the fruitiness and the depth and the complexity and the richness of the oak. It also has an earthiness that I like, that I think goes so well in this forest that we live in. And we like to make actually a fondue of finely chopped sauteed mushrooms and some of this wine and some brie. And we'll melt that
I
all
can
down in
imagine.
the fondue pot, then we dip crusty French bread in it and serve that wonderful Jonathan Oak aged reserve.
I wish I would have asked you that ahead of time. We,
Come prepared.
yeah, no, that sounds amazing.
And then we have Kier, and this was the wine that I spoke about a little while ago. It's about 5% black currant, about 95% apple. But because black currants are so unimaginably tart and sour, the only thing you're going to taste in this wine is that little bit of black currant. There's really no way to find apple in this wine.
Oh, it smells so good.
And this one is a little bit surprising because up front it's pretty sweet, and then you swallow the wine and
Yeah.
the black currant
That's
starts
smooth
to
though.
talk.
Oh, I like that.
Tart.
You're right. It has it like it ends really tart,
Uh-huh.
but you don't taste that from the get-go.
That's right, you don't. So, and in wine geek talk, that aftertaste, what happens after you swallow the wine is called finish. And if you stick out your little finger when you say that,
Finish.
finish.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, I can taste the sweetness on the tip of my tongue,
Yep.
but then after it's
Yep, that's
down,
right.
it's like, oh,
Yeah. So, summer evening, vinegar and oil dressing. Replace some of the vinegar with Kier. Make a spinach salad, garnish it with fresh fruit, walnuts, a sprinkle of feta, put the Kier vinaigrette over the salad, and serve that wine.
You need to start a kit. Do you have a kitchen? Are we making these here? No, stay away.
No
Stay
kitchen.
away.
No, please, no. That's the best way I know. If you work
Yeah.
really hard and not make a lot of money.
Yeah, well,
It's an
yeah.
entirely different business. From,
It is-
you
it is
know,
a different, yeah.
My goodness, I see so many wineries that they have wine, they have beer, they have a kitchen, they have music. I can't imagine how you could run a business that complicated.
a lot of moving
team.
parts.
Weddings,
Yeah.
oh, and add weddings to it. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to be talking to some local caterers and say, okay,
Yes.
I need you to swap a couple things
Yeah.
so we can try this out.
Have you ever done any food pairings or anything like
We
that?
do, well, the Wine Trail does 3 food pairings a year.
Okay.
Progressive food pairings.
Yeah.
Each winery has a bit of finger food and a wine they think goes especially well with it. And I believe a ticket is $35. It runs Friday and Saturday, the first weekend in November, I think March and July, let's say.
Okay.
But you might want to ask Brandy about
Yeah.
that for sure. Anyway, I do know that the next one is the week after next, the first weekend in November.
Awesome.
And so it's, as I say, a progressive event. You go from winery to winery to winery. And you can, in the 2 days on the Friday and Saturday, you can pretty much cover all 12 wineries and have a pretty different experience at each one for sure.
That's awesome.
That's terrific.
Another wine for you to taste. This is called Orchard Spice. And this is based on the Joy of Cooking apple pie recipe. It
Okay.
has 2 parts cinnamon and 1 part nutmeg. Classic apple pie seasonings.
So this is what you think of as like a fall
You
wine.
got it. Cold weather wine.
Over a campfire.
That's it.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I smell the cinnamon.
That's it. We call it apple pie in a bottle or Christmas in a glass.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
And if you have people coming over on a cold night, bottle or two of that in a crock pot.
I was going to say, you could have this mold
That's
very
it.
easily.
It's
Ooh.
pre-mold. You don't need to add anything to it. Bottle or two of that in a crock pot. Serve it like a hot punch. End of the evening, got some of that left in your crock pot. If you can avoid the temptation to drink it, use it to slow cook a cut up chicken or a small pork roast or ham. Simmer overnight in orchard spice. Ooh. Guaranteed.
I love these food suggestions with every wine bottle. I'm gonna go back and watch this and do this from home. Coming home with all four of these.
This presentation is really our specialty.
Yeah.
And I think it makes a huge difference. We get it. There's so many warm, fuzzy feelings from the people on both sides of the counter. Everyone enjoys the experience, and that it makes it kind of magical. I mean, people that work here do it because they like it.
Yeah.
Whoa, holy mackerel! It's not just the money.
Yeah. Well, no, and I was here a couple months ago, and I forget what her name was who was serving us, but it was. I mean, she kind of in the same way, but she just so polite, but also very giving great suggestions for the area, giving great suggestions for the wine individually. I mean, it's kind of like the zip line. It's like a whole experience, and I appreciate that. That a lot of businesses are picking up. Yeah, if somebody's coming in here, a lot of times people are coming in here for their first time. They're in town for the weekend, staying at an Airbnb, you know, and just saw you guys and came over, and so it's cool that you recognize that and that you give them an experience, something that will make them remember Southern Illinois.
That's right.
And so, as people who are constantly trying to drive tourism in Southern Illinois, we appreciate that because, you know.
And it produces word of mouth.
Yeah.
And what is it? They call it the least expensive, most effective form of advertising. Is we've never once spent a penny on advertising at the Pomona Winery.
Wow.
And it's worked out for us extremely well. So.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
So now we have a strawberry wine. It tastes more like strawberries than strawberries do. This is always at the end of our tasting because it's also going to destroy your palates. And you're going to taste strawberries for the next 10 minutes. If you like dark chocolate, 80 or 85 or even 90% cocoa, that's a wine that can handle it.
Oh yeah.
You're right. I could put this on a loofah and wash with it. I want to smell this all day.
That's delicious though.
And what I like to do, we make a really obscene dessert with this one. We soak get a really dense fudge brownie and butterfly it. And then we drizzle that wine over the brownie halves until they're soft enough to easily cut with a fork. And then top that with sliced strawberries, fresh whipped cream, and shaved dark chocolate. And a little glass of that on the side, and skip dinner. Just go, life is uncertain, eat dessert first.
I wasn't hungry before I walked in here, but...
You know what that reminds me of, that smell? I had a strawberry shortcake baby doll, and the baby dolls were known for their head of hair to smell like strawberry shortcake.
Oh, I remember those. Yes, okay.
I had one
I had
when
no
I was
idea
little.
That's what that was about.
And it reminds me of my strawberry shortcake doll. It smells so good.
Her childhood. Your wine just brought her back to her
good.
childhood.
Well,
that's
they
amazing.
say that the sense of
awesome.
smell is almost reptilian and takes it has very deep connections
Yes, it
to
does.
things.
To memories.
Yes. So, and there's one of them. There's a
That is.
also.
That's awesome. People connect with their childhood here. You can say now.
I don't know. That sounds a little bit scary.
Right.
Oh yeah.
As you're serving alcohol.
Yeah. All right. I guess you're right. But that, I mean,
man.
I just so appreciate what you've done here. I mean, to hear how you started and to see where you're at now. I do want to real quickly. I want to talk about these awards, because you've got them not just on this pillar,
Yeah, we do.
but you've got them on that pillar, yes.
Let's see, I think now, oh heavens, it's got to be like 28 out of the last 29 years, or 29 out of the last 30. Every single one of our wines has won at least one medal in a judging.
Holy cow.
And I do need to say, it's a judging, not a competition.
Okay.
So that means the wines aren't judged compared to one another. They're judged compared to a standard.
Gotcha.
And any wine that meets the standard of 19 or 20 points in the judging scheme wins a gold medal. So it's not like there's only one gold, one silver, and one bronze.
Okay.
Oftentimes, a wine that doesn't win a bronze medal is sometimes considered maybe not entirely commercially viable. Maybe you ought to think about fixing something here. So again, it's not a competition, it is a judging. But we've been very successful. We have won the Governor's Cup, I think, 8 times now, and that means that our wine was chosen as the best Illinois non-grape wine out of all of the non-grape wines in the Illinois judging. So we've been very successful at that.
Yeah.
And we got a bunch of gold medals. And we also took a best of show once in the Indiana judging, which at that time was the largest judging of wines outside of California.
Wow.
Purdue University, they often had over 2,000 entries, that judging. It unfortunately folded during COVID and hasn't been reborn, but that was a very significant judging. So, and that was our Orchard Spice that won that. Oh, and the only wine that ever failed to win a medal any given year was our Kier, our best seller. And
Really?
the very next year, that same wine, I mean, it came out of the same tank. That same wine was awarded the Governor's Cup. It was chosen as the best Illinois non-grape wine in the Illinois judging. So that's another insight into wine judgings. They are not objective.
Yeah.
It's impossible for it to be objective.
It would be.
Wine judges will often taste over 50 wines in a day.
Holy cow.
That would be really difficult.
Yeah.
Yes, very, very difficult. Yeah.
Be a good kind
Lots
of
of water.
difficult, though, you know. That's the kind of
Good
difficult.
difficult.
That's the kind of difficult I think I could.
Challenge
I could hit.
accepted.
Yeah, exactly. But
Oh, well,
No, yeah.
George, I have one last question for
Yes.
you. When you are not making wine and talking with our visitors, what else do you like to do?
Explore the desert Southwest in our camper.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. As I said before, we spend at least 10 weeks a year during the winter. We've been doing that now for, 50 years in some sense, but we have for the last 20 years, we have a Head Start bus that we've converted into a self-contained camper. It's only 18 feet long. It's the same length as a 12-passenger van. It's deliriously comfortable. It has everything that we need within arm's reach because it's so small that you can reach the whole thing from one place. But we lived in that camper now for over 5 years, if you add up all the time. And that's what we most like to do.
Wow, so you've been going down there for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What, is there any particular place that's your favorite?
Oh, yeah, but I don't want to tell anyone. No.
Don't put it on the map.
No, southeastern Utah.
Yeah.
And I think anybody could figure out that that's a pretty marvelous place.
I had the luxury of being able to explore there 2 years ago.
Okay,
and
good.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, and I'm sure you hit the big 5.
I don't know what the big 5 are.
Canyonlands, Bryce, Yosemite, Zion.
We didn't
and-
get enough time, but we did go to Zion, and then we got to hike the Narrows, and that was the most
how
amazing
cool.
experience.
Oh, bravo. Good for you.
Yeah,
All right.
I'd go back again in a heartbeat just
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. And of course, because we've been going there so long and have spent so much time there, we don't visit the national parks anymore.
Yeah.
But man, boy, have we had an opportunity to explore some stuff that you don't normally see.
That's really cool.
And we have a library of mind-boggling camping spots. And because of the nature of our camper, it's a Head Start bus. It has windows all the way around. So it's like sitting outside, except it has a furnace and it's comfortable.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'll have to tell you about my experience when we sign off here, but that's really cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Well, George, again, thank you so
Good.
much for having us
you.
out, man. This has been awesome. It's been so cool. I had no idea until I came here the first time that you guys did not do any grapes, and so it is just. It's cool to hear your story. It's cool to hear how you've gotten here, and it's also amazing to hear how the wine trail has helped you through the process and how it has grown over that time. So, George, thank you so much.
Well, you bet.
Thank you so much, George. It's been an honor.
Thank you. Same here.
Yeah.
Same here. Obviously, I love doing these things.
And you're a great presenter. It's amazing.
Yes.
When I took my vocational preference test in high school, I scored the highest as performer. And I had any idea what that meant. I sure didn't see any future in it, but I think it's come full circle.
I think it has. I think it served you well.
Yes, I'd say so.
I'm glad you only had 4 bottles out, because I'm going to get one of each as presents for other people, and probably keep at least one of them. But I'm glad you didn't have like 10 of them out, because I probably would have bought all 10.
Well, I couldn't have done that. I only have 9.
Okay.
Well, and I think of like a different person each time too, because I know people with different palates and stuff like that. But yeah,
Right.
I'm also taking Orchard Spice home with me.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing.
yeah. So awesome. Thank you, George.
You bet.
Yeah,
And again,
thank
thank you.